snow in some... One Central Coast neighborhood will soon welcome home a returning hero from the Persian Gulf.
Later tonight, Navy Corpsman Gary Brown will arrive at his parents' house in Santa Maria. Dan Godwin joins us live at the scene where a night of celebrating is about to begin. Dan?
Bob and Mary, we're coming to you from the 1600 block of East Alban Street, and this place is pretty decked out. With all the balloons and streamers, it sort of resembles a candidate's headquarters on election night. But Gary Brown, Jr. doesn't have to run for anything. He's already won the admiration and respect of those who know him best. It is no exaggeration to say the neighborhood is pumped up. Tonight, about 20 of those people will be on hand to remind Gary of that fact. Okay, we've just received an update on Gary's progress. He's now due to arrive at about 8:30 from San Diego with his parents. So that means all the folks who are gathered here are going to have to wait a bit before getting into the spaghetti, as well as the welcome home cake and the champagne. Joining me now is somebody who's going to be especially pleased to see his brother. This is Alex Brown, Gary's brother. You saw Gary last night at Pendleton in San Diego. What did you say to him?
Well, there's no way to express how glad you were to have him back. And
I think this guy's intrigued with the microphone here. Okay.
And we had a big hug, I tell you that. You know, he's been gone a long time.
What kind of shape was he in? How did he look?
He looked good, and he was extremely happy, good spirits.
Did you get the feeling that he feels good about the experience over there in the Gulf?
He knows he went over there and did the job he had to do, and he couldn't believe that everybody was making such a big deal.
Of course, every family has different traditions that make the holiday unique and special. Lots of us have Christmas trees in the home, but tonight Mary Babbitt introduces us to a local man who planted a Christmas garden in his living room.
It looks like something out of Santa's workshop. This elaborate village is called the Christmas Garden, and you can find it under George Maloney's tree. The garden is a tradition George grew up with in Baltimore and transplanted to Santa Maria more than 15 years ago.
I took the east and I brought it west.
Each of these miniature homes is handmade by George. They look like delicately carved wood, but looks can be deceiving.
This is nothing but recycled backs of pads.
But what it becomes is a work of art. George uses an X-Acto knife to carve intricate details into his homes, from lattice work to stained glass windows. His inspiration comes from all around. If you look close, you'll find a mini version of his neighbor's home, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and even the home from the Waltons TV show. That one wasn't easy to sketch.
At the end of the show, when everybody would go to bed, you'd hear them all, "Good night, good night, good night." And here's the house sitting there, and that's, you know, I grab a window or I grab a door, try and copy it down.
George says his enchanted garden makes a kid out of everyone.
Grown-ups, some of them are worse than kids with the garden. They're down on their hands and knees, crawling all over the place and all. And I even give them a candy cane.
I guess you could say George has a green thumb. There's already more than 55 homes and buildings in this garden, and every year it just keeps on growing.
Probably next year I'll make it a little bigger.
It's more than houses sprouting up under George's tree. One look and you know love blossoms here too. In Santa Maria, Mary Babbitt, News Channel 12.
I think everybody turns into a kid again at Christmas time.
And finally tonight, the Central Coast is famous for many things, but musical instruments isn't usually one of them.
That just may be changing, though. Some of the best guitars in the world are made in San Luis Obispo, and the company's reputation is growing fast. Tonight, Dan Godwin gives us a look inside Ernie Ball Incorporated.
Inside the shop, it's a blending of high technology and old-fashioned craftsmanship. The company produces about 300 guitars and basses a month, and every one of them requires many hours of painstaking attention to detail.
I get a feel of accomplishment that I have done something and that I can appreciate the work that's gone into it.
I love working with wood. I'm retired and I could be sitting at home in the rocking chair looking at TV, but I'd rather be down here working for Ernie Ball, making these beautiful guitars.
That opinion is shared by many people in the music industry. During their last world tour, Rolling Stones' Ron Wood and Keith Richards relied heavily on their matching white Ernie Ball guitars.
It says something about what we do here. If a famous musician can pick up the guitar and say, yeah, this can be my main axe, then you know, it makes sense to me that, and everybody else involved in this project, that they're playing that because of the quality and because it's all there.
Some musicians do more than just play Ernie Ball instruments. Rock legend Edward Van Halen recently joined forces with the company to create his own custom-designed guitar. The Van Halen model should start appearing in music stores early next year. There is a certain glamour to the business of making guitars, but to the people at Ernie Ball Incorporated, the appeal is more down to earth. It's knowing that when the instrument is finally ready to play, it's going to look and sound just right. In San Luis Obispo, Dan Godwin, News Channel 12.
Sounds good. Looks
Sounds
good,
great.
too. By the way, Dan Godwin did speak with Ernie Ball himself today, but Ernie is a little bit camera shy.
I guess he lets his guitars do his talking for him.
Why not?
That's
About 175 Cuban inmates are incarcerated here at Lompoc. They live in lockdown, a single cell where they spend 23 hours a day. The Marlitos here are among 700 kept in secure units throughout the U.S. penitentiary system. They received their lockdown status after causing violent riots at Oakdale and the Atlanta Penitentiary.
They had come straight from riots. They had come straight from destroying 2 prisons. And they had come from taking large numbers hostage, and they had come from causing the government something like $135 million in less than 2 weeks in damage.
Warden Dick Risen is the chairman of a federal task force reviewing the status of Cuban inmates. The penitentiary is holding some Marlitos who have already finished their sentences. These men are illegal aliens who can't be released into American society, but also refuse to go home for fear of retribution. In fact, the Marlitos find staying behind bars preferable to returning to Cuba.
You know, there was never a single word about conditions of confinement. They've handled it pretty well. Much better than probably most of us would have.
The task force is working to release some of the Cuban inmates into the general prison population. The warden says not all of the Marlitos are so dangerous that they need constant lockdown, and several hundred throughout the nation are already out of lockdown. Some of the Marlitos have been behind bars since they first came off the boat in 1981, and though many have already finished their sentences, they remain behind bars, their fate in the hands of the U.S. Immigration Service and the courts. At Lompoc Penitentiary, Christy Vaughn, News Channel 12.
Get that camera out of here until I invite you in. Hey, we invite you. You're all right. Remember. When I invite you in, you can come in with that camera, and I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you and everybody else at the same time. Okay?
That's Rambo.
The character Rambo is fashioned after real-life Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz. Unlike Sylvester Stallone, Greitz fought in Vietnam. He spent 6 years as a prisoner of war, is the most decorated Green Beret of the Vietnam era, and went 8 times behind communist lines in search of American servicemen missing in action. Just like Rambo, Greitz sees himself as a true American and a lone fighter against the corruption of government.
The American prisoner of war is not coming home while he is still alive, because there are those in the highest echelons of the federal government who would be exposed for their illegal activities in drug trafficking.
Greitz says he has proof that high-ranking government officials use drug money to pay for covert operations, such as in Vietnam and Nicaragua.
The U.S. government will not bring home prisoners of war until we cleanse the bureaucratic sewage that's blocking that. We could have brought American prisoners of war home. I could have personally on 3 different occasions. But at the 11th hour, something always happened to deny us that victory.
Greitz says he won't give up the fight to bring the missing soldiers home because he says the brotherhood runs deep and families need to know.
So I'd like to see a lot more being done. It's kind of frustrating, you know, and well, they're not knowing, you know, and is he still there? There's a good chance he's still alive, and then again, you know, I don't know.
With more medals than he can wear, Bo Greitz is an American war hero. Yet he believes our government is corrupt and says it'll take a Rambo to bring our missing soldiers home. In Santa Maria, Christy Vaughn, News Channel 12.
At the Lompoc post office, at least one regular customer is fearing the worst.
Well, it's going to be awfully hard on the people that are sending a lot of things, that, especially overseas now that our troops are overseas. They're looking forward to mail.
But you won't hear any such gloomy predictions from the people who run the post office. Lompoc's postmaster says any internal labor conflicts should not affect service to the public.
It will continue to be business as usual, and we'll leave the negotiations up to the arbitration.
Mail carriers and clerks are currently paid a starting wage of $12.25 an hour. After 12 years on the job, they can earn a maximum of roughly $32,000. Management is trying to add steps to the salary scale and bring in more part-time employees. The union wants higher wages than they're being offered and a better health plan. Unlike most other types of labor disputes, this one cannot end in a strike. Federal law prohibits postal workers from walking off the job, and that fact tends to dampen some of the emotion surrounding the contract talks.
I just keep working. You know, it'll be resolved sooner or later, one way or another.
So it's not a thing that's as far as morale or anything like that. And it's basically we secure with having a job, so.
More negotiations are being planned between the post office and the union, but next time a neutral arbitrator will be involved in an effort to break the current deadlock. In Lompoc, Dan Godwin, News Channel 12.
Channel 29, Kbak TV, Bakersfield. This is a weekend edition of News 29.
The drowning of an 18-year-old man in the Kern River yesterday has officials worried that more drownings may happen this year as warm weather arrives. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Saturday night. I'm George Franco. Well, the Kern River claimed another drowning victim yesterday. As we see in this story by Jose Gaspar, the start of the warm season may bring more victims later on.
Start pumping. Go ahead. By the time the sheriff's search and rescue team arrived at the Kern River yesterday, it was too late.
We lost him right there at the tree.
18-year-old Rosalia Montes had been in the river at waist high when the river bottom suddenly fell and he couldn't swim.
Okay, here we go.
The thing that the river does, it changes constantly. It's always changing from one month to the next due to natural movement of the trees and bushes, beavers working on trees, knocking them down, and it changes. Where the youth died yesterday, it went from 3 feet of water to about 6.5, 7 foot.
Bring the bag in, Brian.
The victim's brother couldn't save him before he went down below the murky waters of the Kern River, which has now claimed 149 lives in the last 20 years. These calm, slow-moving waters can be especially deceiving to a non-swimmer. And like so many others who have lost their lives before him, the 18-year-old who drowned here yesterday was also deceived by the Kern River. And with the start of the hot weather, more victims could fall prey to the tempting cool water of the river. But officials are also worried about very young victims drowning in the lake.
It's happened twice in the last 2 years for us. We've lost 2 8-year-old youth in Hart Park due to that, playing on a paddle boat, falling off the back, nobody noticing, and the youth becomes disoriented and drowns.
Park rangers expect close to 20,000 people at Hart Park tomorrow. Many will be in the water. Officials stress, however, it only takes seconds for a tragedy to occur.
See, what most people don't realize is that a person loses sense of direction underwater in a panic situation, and it only takes about 20 to 60 seconds to drown.
At the Kern River, Jose Gaspar, News 29.
You know, I don't know if you've ever had the chance to fly in a helicopter, but it is a real treat.
And an even bigger treat would be to be the pilot of that helicopter. Our photographer Scott Guest gives us a look.
To get a fully equipped helicopter with a radio and engine and the whole enchilada, you're looking at between $800 and $1,000 to get started into it. And the object is to just learn to hover right off the bat. We've got some gentlemen in a club that actually fly real helicopters, and this is much more challenging. It's a different perspective because you're stationary in one place on the ground, and that little bird is flying all around you. And it's a different perspective than in a real one.
About 500 feet. More.
These are much more aerobatic than a full-size helicopter. For example, a full-size helicopter cannot go inverted. These aircraft can go upside down. In fact, about a half hour ago, we had a guy that was hovering upside down about 6 inches off the ground. He was actually mowing the ground with his helicopter. You can't do that on a full-size helicopter.
This is a top-of-the-line competition helicopter.
Even sounds like a lawnmower.
Now watch.
Well, have you ever seen one of those big hot air balloons floating around in the sky?
And have you ever wondered what it would be like to take a ride up in one of them? Well, here's the next best thing.
There are as many different balloons as there are pilots, just about. There's probably 12, 15 different major manufacturers of balloons. So each type of balloon is unique in the way that it's rigged and put together. The three basic parts of the balloon, though, are the basket that we're in, the burner system, and the envelope. And then we pull out our big fans, fill them full of air. And once we've got them packed with cold air to where they'll hold their shape. We can light off the burner system, throw the heat into it. That'll stand it up. Once it's standing up, and we got people holding us down, bring the temperature up, load the passengers, and we're on our way. We're moving with the wind, so you're flying level. You're very calm, you never feel a breeze. Winds at different altitude will go different direction. So essentially what we did is we took off and we're moving north, put it into a climb. We've gone upward about 3,500 feet now before we could find something that's moving back in the direction that we came from. We'll go back about another half mile beyond the launch field and come back down to the surface or lower than we are now, and we can land right where we took off. Closest I've ever been able to do this.
That's your truck there, the blue one, isn't it?
That's the one. We launched from where they're standing.
Honey.
Wait on.
Yeah! All right.
Good show.
Rather a bit of all right, what?
I know y'all didn't enjoy that.
Boy, I felt like I've been up there. Wasn't that a great piece? That was Scott Guest shot that piece of video. That was wonderful work.
Aren't you glad airplanes don't sound like that when they're coming down?
If we really knew how they sounded, we might be more worried.
It's true.
We'll be right back. There we go, about 500 feet. More. All right, here we go. Turn the engine off. That's it. Okay, it's not running anymore. Whoa! Oh, man! Anyone you can walk away from.
of doom howling more. Oh.